So yeah, tonight we'll be talking about creating squares for your pieces, which, as I was saying, it can be a pretty difficult subject if you've never thought about it before. Sometimes there's a nice closed position, things are very static, nothing is really going to change much as far as the pawn structure is concerned. And sometimes there's just an easy square. You can say, oh, that's the ideal square. If I could put my piece there, that'd be great. I would just put it there, and it's real easy. Sometimes that square doesn't exist, but there's a square you could create on the board that you could eventually use to create a hole or some sort of ideal square where you could place a piece. So today we're gonna sort of focus on using the pawns. A lot of creating squares is gonna have to do with the pawn structures and pawn moves. And the pawns really are indicative in chess of where you want to put your pieces. So by using the pawns to create weaknesses in your opponent's territory, you can create ideal squares for your pieces. So we're going to go ahead and throw it now over to the board. And this first game, this first little puzzle that we're going to look at tonight, this is the game between Viktor Laznicka and Vugar Gashimov. So two 2700s, very good, strong players. And hopefully this will be the easy puzzle of the night so we can get an idea of what it means. And if you're just joining us, we're creating squares for our pieces. So let the audience think about this position for a minute. And at home, you may want to pause because I'll stop talking and they'll think for several minutes. So if you want the same amount of time, you should pause your video and try to solve this for yourself. Okay, and I thought this was like the easy one, but I showed it to two of our instructors, our higher rated instructors here, and one of them actually really struggled here, and the other one found it in 1 second. So this is probably either really easy or really hard for you. But yeah, I'll sit here quietly for a minute, and I'll give you guys just a chance to look at the position and think about what you would play here as white. F4, okay, and what's your idea? Are you just putting your knight here? Or are you thinking of some sort of like sacrifice to get a knight here? Or what? You're thinking of the sacrificial idea? And I think, okay, F4 is actually just a normal, perfectly fine move. And that's also sort of the problem with these strategical puzzles is there's not just one right move in any of the examples you're gonna see tonight. F4 is definitely a very reasonable move that white really should consider seriously, and I assume they did. It's not what was played in the game, but that doesn't mean it's wrong or inaccurate or anything like that. So F4 definitely is the right idea. And, you know, because it's not a tactics puzzle where there's only one right answer and everything's an only move, which is sort of the problem with these puzzles in general. But I think the idea that was played in the game is a little more accurate and a little more instructive. So, but yeah, F4 is definitely on the agenda. A4 is the right answer. So you're immediately putting pressure on the B pawn, which is going to force black to make some concession. He doesn't really want to take and let you get pressure along the A file. So it's almost certain that he'll push B4. And this gives away a very key square here, the C4 square, which would be ideal for one of our pieces, especially a knight. Because if one of our knights landed on C4, you'd have some pressure on D6. So what did white play in this position? Your knight's attacked, so hopefully you don't play knight C4. And E2, okay. Yeah, so that's the interesting question. So the class is wondering, knight E2 or knight D1? Why would you go to D1? Yeah, and that's what was played in the game. Knight went to D1 to E3, and then from there you can go to C4. And you'll have two knights that can use that square. And this is enough to say that you've solved the puzzle if you saw this much. So we'll go through the game. The knight went to D1. Black played A5 to combat this idea. He's going to put a bishop here so that, okay, you're fighting for the C4 square. The knight went to E3, and we got our knight to C4. So this is the example. If you saw this much, then you got the puzzle correct. In the game, we'll just show one thing. In this position, white didn't have to play the way they played. We'll just show the next move, though. White played here, which sacrifices the exchange on F1. So black took it. It's looking pretty good. Revealed attack on your knight, but white had this idea in mind, and white has lots of compensation for the slight material deficit. You got a passed A pawn. You got a lot of light squares on the queen side that you can use, and white did end up going on to win this game. So okay, very good. And so that was hopefully the easy one. We'll look at some slightly more where'd it go? We'll look at some slightly more complicated examples here. Which one first? Guess we'll do this one. So this is the game between, let's see, Etienne Bacrot and Ian Rogers. Ian Rogers being the Australian Grandmaster that's done commentary here for us before. Very friendly guy. He's always fun when he comes here, but he will be on the receiving end of a loss in this position. So, okay, we'll look at a few moves just to get an idea of the plot. It was a rapid game as well. Okay, so in this position, white ends up getting lots of pressure. And so we'll pause here and we'll think about using our pawns to create squares for our pieces. And white here is slightly better. You got more space, and you have the potential to really activate your pieces here. But how are you going to do it? So again, this one's a little bit harder, and it's more of a plan. It's sort of a long-term idea, and there's more than one way you can actually go about it. So I'll go ahead and I'll pause again. At home, you may want to pause your video for additional time. But okay, I'll give you guys a little bit of time to think here. Bishop g4 is a very good move. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's the computer's second choice. And yeah, this is just a good way to improve your piece. The knight will probably end up going to c5, which prevents you from putting your bishop on a nice square over here. And I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with this plan. It's just a very good move. But it was not the plan that was chosen in the game. Okay, so what's the plan?
A3 and then b4. If you try c5, I play b4 anyway.
Okay. Yeah, a3. If they play c5, you play b4 anyway. Okay. Do you see how you're going to get a ideal square for one of your pieces?
Yeah.
Yeah. The rook's going to end up going over this way, somewhere like over here.
No, like a7.
Like a7. It's going to use the A file and it's going to go to A7. Yeah, so we're getting close. And I will give one hint. It doesn't actually have to do with the rook. The rook is, at the moment at least, doing a pretty good job keeping this knight stuck defending that pawn in kind of a silly fashion. And the bishop, yeah, the bishop does have this potential in the future to go over here to g4, which is very good. And the only piece we really need to worry about a little bit is this guy. It's okay, I guess, but white found a way here to really incorporate his knight. And so by using his worst place piece and finding a way to bring it to a really, really optimal square that in this current position doesn't exist, it needs to be created, he was able to get a very dominating position that led to a victory. So we're getting very close. Knight a4, okay. And where are you headed?
So I'm thinking that the knight then can't go to where it would have went.
Okay, so you're preventing knight c5.
And then maybe a3 and then b4.
And then a3, b4. Okay, but why did you need to put your knight on a4 to play this move? Because if a3 immediately, you're not worried about this move, are you? Because you just played b4. So yeah, a3, b4 is definitely a huge part of this. But I don't think you need to use knight a4. I think you can find a better square for that knight. All right. If you could liquidate several of the pawns on the queen side, I guess where would you ultimately just love for this knight to be? D5. Yeah, D5 is okay. That's a fantastic square, right in the center. immediately, it would be a fork. But even if it isn't a fork, it does put tremendous pressure on black. Unfortunately, you can't go there immediately. But hopefully with all these clues now, we can find the right plan, the right solution. And again, there's more than one way you can do it. And that's what happened. In the game, A3 was played immediately, which is actually slightly inaccurate, and we'll go back. But yeah, the basic idea is he went over here so that he's a little bit farther away. He is threatening a check. Ooh. So now white took. This is what we're talking about. And B4. And the idea now is B5. And either I take you or you take me, and I get access to the D5 square, which is exactly what happened. So you got your check in. All right, very good. And now he sort of sees what's coming. And in this position, we got to a very ideal square, D5. And then white went on to win this game in not too many more moves. But it is worth noting, I mean, it was a rapid game to repeat. After the move A3, the computer really wants you to play C5. This would sort of prevent that idea, because even if you do play B4, we can take once, and we can wait for you to take, and if you end up taking, then you bring my knight here. So this actually would have combated against that idea. So it would have been slightly more accurate to have begun with taking here first, followed up with A3, B4, B5. Okay, so very good. That was our second puzzle. We'll move right along. We got one more. Bloop, bloop. And this one is from black's point of view. This is the game between Robert Dabo Peranic versus Goran Dizdar. Was played in 2000. And we'll show a few moves. So white has just castled queenside. And black is about 300 points higher rated than his opponent. And we got sort of an interesting position where white is taking control of some of the squares on the queen side. And we get this very interesting position. And again, this perhaps is the least satisfying of the three, because there's a lot of solutions that are decent and reasonable for black. There's several moves that you can play that won't dramatically change the assessment or your chances of winning. But the move that was played, I think, was instructive and very interesting. So again, we're trying to create squares for our pieces. And I'll give you guys a couple minutes here. Maybe this one's the hardest, who knows? Because I've shown it to different people, and different people struggle with different puzzles. So, okay, I'll just be quiet for a minute or two here. Okay, so you're thinking about taking here?
Yeah, you might take back with the queen.
And you might take back with the queen? I agree with that. And this is fine. It's a perfectly reasonable solution. It isn't what was played, and you can follow it up with a move like bishop to f6, which is fully reasonable and in no ways wrong at all. You do have to worry about this move. It's not a major issue, but okay, you do have to think about what happens on d5. And okay, I mean, you can try to get off the d file. And this position is fine. You might end up with a weakness here on e6, but also you might still also get some pressure here sometimes. So this is possible. But I do like what black did in the game a little bit better. So we'll see. And have we identified perhaps a possible ideal square or a possible square that we might want to get for our pieces? Is there any square you wish you could put a piece but you can't?
F5 with the bishop.
Bishop on f5? That's going to be hard to. It's going to be hard to do. You want your guy here.
Yeah.
I kind of want my knight on d5.
You kind of want your knight on d5. Yeah, I agree with that.
I want the queen just somewhere better.
You just want the queen somewhere better. Okay. Yeah, you want your queen out here.
No, I was,
It's-
it was to play queen c8 and then a6, but I'm not sure what it does there either.
Okay, you want to put your queen here and then go. I don't know why I did that. Which is an interesting idea.
I really want to play
What a knight on e2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think d5 is the ideal square. You do want to put a knight there. The obvious problem is this pawn. So
I'm really tempted to play
b5, yeah.
and I kind of want to just take the bishop.
Okay, yeah, so this is what was played in the game. And so you do have to address this, and so obviously there's two ways to take. I guess first I'll look at what Darian's crazy suggestion is. He just wants to take this, which is a bit extreme, but I don't think it's, I think you do probably get lots of compensation if you do end up doing this. So this is very possible. Will he ever, will White be able to just consolidate a little bit, probably bring the queen back, and then I can try to trade knights and stuff. So this is possible. I'll have to remind myself what was actually played in the game. Sorry, so in the game, b5, and this was played. Yeah, if you take here, c6 is the tactical idea in the position. Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, so if bishop takes, it's a big blunder. And yeah, so even if here, we just play here. It's not that big of a blunder. It's a pretty big blunder.
I don't think the pawns matter in this kind of.
Yeah, it's.
C and B files open, and I
Mhm.
can have the pawn.
But okay, we can go here. This also is possible. I mean, I don't have to blunder. It's optional. Okay, in a position like this, Black has the ideas of a5, a4, with a very decent position. So in the game, that's why we can see that this move was played. And also, I guess it is also worth mentioning, if you try to be clever, we'll see this tactical misfire again. Okay, very clever. Whoop. So so that was impossible. So in the game after b5, he took with the pawn. So how would you guys continue now? Knight d5, exactly. And yeah, so this is enough. So I mean, if you take the knight, we take back with the queen, and we're attacking everything. So he brought the queen back, and if you saw this much, it's enough to say that you solved the puzzle. We'll look at just a couple more moves in the game just to see how it actually went. So here, which is okay, I guess, he took and went over here. And now king b1 is actually a mistake. It wasn't played in the game. What would you guys play on king b1? So we can understand why Black played queen h4. Queen c4, yeah, exactly. So in the game, b3 was played. That prevents queen c4. And Black went up a pawn. And after this move, Black would have continued to increase the advantage had he found this move, attacking the c pawn. And okay, in the game, he played queen e7, and eventually, I mean, there was a lot of weaknesses on this side of the board, and Black went on to win the game. But yeah, if you just saw in the initial position here, the idea of trying to get to the square, and here you really had to work for it. And in general, that's kind of how you have to sometimes think in chess, like, how can I make this work? And you have to sort of force what you want to be able to work in the position. You really want to put your knight there. But if you want to do that, then you have to make this move work, tactically and strategically. And in this position, it does work. It doesn't mean like the game's over, black suddenly wins or anything. That's not how these puzzles work. But just by fighting for the squares and getting control of the squares that you want, you can achieve much better positions. So hopefully that was a little bit helpful. I wanted to do a shorter one just to make sure we could get to some games, because people have been sending in games. So we will go over one game that was submitted. I now have received over 100. So you can keep sending them in to info@stlouischessclub.org. It's becoming harder and harder to get yours shown here just because we keep getting so many. I got about 30 in my inbox this morning, so that's great. People keep sending them in, and I'm very happy to analyze them. Okay. This was a game that was sent in by a gentleman named Ilias. He says he's 24 from Greece. He just started playing. He started playing last summer. He started watching chess videos, playing chess on the internet. On various chess websites, he's about 1650. And he's never played a rated game, but he did participate in a simultaneous exhibition, a 40-person simul, with Greek Grandmaster Ioannis Nikolaidis. So here he is. This is him with the black pieces against the Grandmaster in the simul. I would be ultra happy if you analyzed it in a video in case you find it interesting, and I did. I thought it was a very, very good game. Thank you for your content you upload on YouTube. You guys are amazing. I learn a lot of stuff. Keep it up. So thank you for all the kind words. And of course, if you're 4 in, you write like a paragraph. And somebody did ask, how do you choose the things that you choose? And what is funny is a lot of the times I see a really good game that I want to analyze, but the big mistake people make is they don't tell me like what color they are, or like you don't have to write as much as this gentleman did. You can see it's like the whole screen. You guys can't see it, but they can see it. He just kept writing. You don't have to write that much. I just kind of need to know what side you are and some small details. But I guess the way I do it is I just randomly click, and then once I find one that's good, I'm like, all right, good. So there's no real magic to it. I just keep going until I find a good one, and I selected this one, which I think is a great game. Okay, you got a person that's never played a rated game. He's playing a Grandmaster. You might think Grandmaster just steamrolls right over him. No big deal, but Black fought a very valiant game. He did not win the game, but it is very interesting and instructive, so we'll take a look. So the Grandmaster played d4, and our protagonist here, he played f5, the Dutch, very dynamic. You're taking on a Grandmaster, and you're not afraid to play some sharp chess. Excellent. Knight f3, which is not, the main line. It's not a very common move order, but it's a very decent way. Obviously, such a move can't be a mistake at all. So knight f6, bishop g5, and part of White's move order, he might be thinking, I haven't done anything with my c-pawn yet. Maybe I'll put my knight here, and I'll get to play e4 without allowing you anything. So that is indeed what we saw in the game. And there's two options. You can play bishop e7, which is fine. Our hero here, he played the move d5, which enters into the stonewall formation. He's going to put his pawns right here, get a nice solid position. You don't end up seeing the stonewall too much at the highest level because you are creating lots of weaknesses, but it often is very solid. Stone wall, it's hard to break down. So we'll see if the Grandmaster is able to do it. And sometimes Black does get an attack in these positions, or other times he's just struggling but solid. So we'll see how it transpires. E3, C6, which isn't the most common move because perhaps it's not the most accurate. You could have also developed the bishop first, but C6 is going to be played regardless, so we keep going. C4, bishop D6, which I think is the correct square for the bishop in this position. And I think the opening, very well. Okay, you just got some normal, reasonable position out of the opening as Black. Solid. I used to play this a lot, but then I started playing like IMs and stuff, and then I could never win with Black, so I gave it up. But here also there's already sort of an interesting decision. I think this is the first mistake. There were a couple small mistakes by both sides in this game. And I think it's just sort of a strategical thing that comes from trying to understand this position. So with a small amount of experience in this line, the main drawback in this position, you put all your stuff here, is the bishop. So the key maneuver in this position that black almost always tries to achieve is he wants to do the bishop wiggle and get the light squared bishop outside of the pawn chain where it can be traded off for some other piece. So here in the game, queen e8 was played, which isn't like a blunder or anything, but it does put you in the way of the bishop, so that will make it a little bit more problematic in the future. And I think perhaps black was thinking about other lines like the classical Dutch and other lines where the queen goes over here, makes a presence over here, and is vital to a kingside attack. But that's just not what's going on in this position. In this position, really, with this pawn structure, you want to get rid of this piece as soon as possible. So that also would have been fine. I mean, perhaps this move too is also a fine move. Not a huge fan of this move, but okay, I mean, it doesn't like blow the game or anything. Okay, and now another interesting decision that you have to make. He's offering you a trade. He's taking control over e5. And I do like this position, and this is sort of the type of position where, you know, even computers kind of mess up the evaluation because they can't think long term. But I guess I'll poll the audience here. We'll give you two options. You can take, or you can go back to e7. I guess I'd like to see what the audience would do in this position.
I'll defend it.
You defend it with the queen. You just go here or something. Yeah. So in general, this is the bishop that you do want to keep on the board. So even though the computer likes to take, but I think this is a strategic mistake that the computer just doesn't understand. This is, you do want to keep this guy alive, and if you ever do want to have any hopes for an attack over here, very often, you know, we end up with these sorts of moves, and we get going over here. We do want to keep the dark squared bishop on the board. So he went back, which I think is correct. You know, it's good understanding which pieces you want to trade and which ones you don't. This guy we want to keep on the board because he's navigating all the dark squares. And this guy is like, oh, stuck. So this is the guy we want to get rid of, and this is the guy we want to keep. So I think this was a good decision. Okay, and now here, which is fine. H3, and I think here white also had this chance to already play a really bothersome move. This would have been kind of annoying, and then black might have to go back. So this move wasn't quite right, but white did not exploit it. H3, okay, a solid move. White's clearly better here. And now another interesting strategical decision, A5, and this I don't like. Sometimes you do end up playing over there, but with this move, it sort of makes it seem like black wants to play on the king side. You know, you're bringing your queen over there. Maybe you're going to try to get these moves in and bring the queen over and do something on the king side. But now you're doing something over on the queen side, and you're trying to do something on all sides of the board. And we will see this move actually backfire on our protagonist here. So, okay, 95, yes. Trading is fine here. A4. And okay, sometimes you do this, and then but you have your queen over here that can sometimes come in, and sometimes you can do stuff on the queen side. But just with the way you've rearranged your pieces, it's unlikely to succeed. And here white played sort of an interesting move, A3, just keeping the pawn where it is. And will this, you know, is black really having any chance of, you know, exploiting the weakness over here? Or is it just going to be white that gets to go and pick it up? You can also imagine like the bishop. He has a lot of ways of just going and attacking that pawn, so it actually may become a liability more than it is an asset over there. H6. Okay, you want to play G5. That is the big point. But now Queen D8, which is a bit strange. Probably you should have taken the knight, because now white actually has a really decent option of just jumping into G6, which gives white a rather overwhelming position. But that was not chosen, so white did not immediately go for that. Knight g6 is actually is really bad news for black. But knight b1. Okay, and so we see it. Knight goes here. Knight takes the pawn. So you got to do something about it, and he found a way to circumvent this idea. Knight e4, right? Very good. So when the knight lands on c3, we can take it. Yeah, white is still obviously for choice, but you know, he's making the grandmaster work. You still have to find a way to make inroads into the black position here. This move, and you know, at first when I first saw this move, I'm like, oh, is there any tactics? Oh, nope, because it isn't a protected piece, but it's actually a decent move as long as there's no tactics. Anywhere this knight goes, we can take the bishop with check. Though it is interesting now you've decided that, you know, maybe you do want to trade the dark squared bishops. I mean, I thought maybe you would just continue, you know, going on somewhere over here and not trading the bishops. But we'll see. So he just goes back. White's perfectly happy to trade. The funniest would have just been going back, which I think I probably would have considered. What? And so here he did trade. So you did give away your dark squared bishop, which is your good bishop, and you still are left with this problem. So I mean, will you ever really get the time to do this now? You're slowly running out of time here. And then it's funny, the next move you went here. So you probably wanted to go there in one move, and I don't know, at some point too, I probably still want to like get this out of the way and do the wiggle. And now you do have to be careful here. Which way should we take back? Yeah, you definitely don't want to open the C file, so he made the right decision. I mean, the rooks are coming in. This would be a big mistake. So he took the correct way. You wonder why white took? Yeah, white definitely doesn't have to. White can keep the tension. Yeah, white's never really worried about this, so yeah, you could just keep the tension. And I know the grandmaster's playing 40 boards. That's a lot. So even white, you know, made several mistakes in this game. Because I don't think I've ever seen anything that's that large. Normally around here, I mean, I've seen like 20 board simuls, and even that's kind of a lot. Sometimes there's just 5 board simuls, so it's, you know, rather quick. So this is a lot. I mean, I don't know. And I know with simuls too, they start going around and then people drop out and they come around faster and faster and faster. So I know the feeling at the end, it gets much harder. So the longer you last, the harder it actually gets, because they get to spend more of their energy on your board and you get less and less time. So I have no idea what the situation was in that respect. But yeah, it is a bit strange to get rid of the tension. You kind of like black? Yeah, I think if you can just solve this problem, then things are all right. But it's not so easy to do. And now the bishop goes here, perhaps hinting that it can go here. You know, perhaps saying, you know, you can't move anywhere. I got some pressure here. Another move, g5. And I think, again, I probably would have preferred a move like this and just get, you know, my bishop out. I still have dreams of wiggling, you know, but I think I got to do something with this pretty soon before I run out of time. g5, okay, very aggressive though. And an interesting move by white. I think it's a good move. It kind of surprised me at first, but g3, which is kind of surprising, but I assume the point is he wanted to meet the move f4 with taking and then here. So that's his defensive idea. You know, he does have to be careful. Black still could possibly get an attack in this position, so g3. And okay, he goes here. I assume the idea is he's going to put his knight here. Okay, so we're on this guy. And all right, so he's sacrificing a pawn. And he's saying, okay, you can go take this, and then, you know, I'll go jump in here. I'll get some pressure. Maybe I'll be thinking about some sacrifices. Okay, I dare you to take the pawn. White was not interested. It's yeah, this idea looks a little bit scary. So he blocked the queen's diagonal. And I mean, black has, played very well so far. I mean, I think so far he should be really happy with this. But he now does make the decisive mistake that ends up costing him here. So I assume you should just go forward in a position like this. Ask him, he can move his rook here, or he can end up taking. I do get some pressure. You'll either play g4 or king g2 or some move like this. And the game will continue. And black is slowly solving some of his problems. But in the game, very unfortunate move. The knight went back to d7, an indication that he's not making a lot of progress here. And now the strong move, f4, just solidifying the knight on a great square, where really it can never be captured, but black confounded his problems by taking the knight and giving white this huge passed pawn and a huge structural advantage. Okay, but it's not over yet. Let's have a little bit of hope here. Queen went to g6, which is occasionally going to run into g4 due to the pin. But okay, are you going to keep the bishop here, or are you going to take my pawn? What would the grandmaster do? King g2? How inaccurate. King h2. Then my rook can use the g file. Because white intends to play g4. So, okay, the rook will use the g file. He protected the pawn, which I understand not wanting to lose the pawn. But here, g4 would have been a crusher. But white never plays it. For several moves here, white should play g4 and would have won really quickly, but didn't do it. And he probably didn't see the immediate win, so he was just playing safe. And position this good, you can wait 1,000. I'll play g4 like 1,000 moves from now, and it'll still be good. But you do have to worry about black being able to play g4 himself and preventing your idea. So g4 immediately would have been a very strong continuation. Instead, queen d4, okay, also fantastic. The queen looks in at a lot of the dark squares, and yeah, he's got a lot of good squares for all of his pieces here. Again, g4, very strong. Bishop b1, I don't know, maybe he's just waiting for black to make a mistake. But black actually did a really good job of not doing anything too dramatic or ever, radically changing the position. I mean, okay, this was a bit of a mistake to allow this structure. What happened? Hopefully this is still the game. But yeah, so he's done a good job not, overreacting, not, doing something, crazy, but he's good at not doing anything that would drastically change the position in white's favor. So, but the grandmaster, he's just waiting, he's patient. Come on, black, do something. Bishop e8. Again, black should have considered a move like g4 just to prevent white from playing it. Queen h5 in this position. And you want to sometimes go here. So I guess, I don't know. Play here. And you wanted to get your rooks in somehow? Yeah, something like that. It's a very interesting plan. Yeah, you can use like all of your, yeah. But yeah, maybe somehow if I can get my other rook over here, double them up, and yeah, that's interesting. And that is sort of the side of the board you need to be playing on. I wonder if he would ever sneak in himself. So that would have been interesting as well. But okay, he played bishop e8. I think g4 though, I guess, was just because I never want white to play here, and white should have played g4 like every move, but never did. Okay, so g4 should be played here. He went here in deep anticipation of Darian's idea. Okay, he's going to switch the rook over to the king side. And so again, g4, but rook g2. And he's making everything ready, and okay, so g4, very good. White still has to break through here. It's, he's obviously better in pressing, but black isn't doing anything overly committal. And you know, he's still holding in there, still doing fine. So we got this trade. All right, now, would you guys trade queens here? Some people are violently shaking their head no. They're like, no way, no way. Which is probably correct. You could play a move like h5 probably, and you can trade on my terms. You could move the queen back. You can even play a move like c5. There's a lot of stuff to do. What would you play? Bishop h5 is also a very, very reasonable move. And after this trade. And I think white in this position is just very happy to trade pieces. You know, who knows, he might even just go trade some more pieces. Just because the endgame will always favor white because of his pawn structure. So he's very happy to go into an endgame. Black did take, which I probably would have tried to avoid. The more pieces that comes off, the easier the endgame is actually going to be for white to play. Okay, but the bishop came in, and now this looks, you know, very reasonable. If we just get to install this bishop somewhere, if we get to go here, if we get to go here and here, you know, we're looking at a very decent game. But white had this well calculated, and there is a tactic now that did decide the game. Does anybody see it? Just push the pawn? This one? Okay. And that's what was played. He took here. And yeah, the bishop took on f5, and now it's looking grim. It's looking grim. It's not over though. It's not over. Yeah, there's a pin on the g file. So this happened. Okay. You know, white still has to crash through, but it's getting easier. In here, which is another little mistake. I mean, obviously you're worse, and it's not easy to do very much in this position. But again, you don't want to trade when you're worse. You have the worst pawn structure. The end game is going to be worse for you. So you should try to keep as many pieces on as you can, because this king is obviously going to start marching up the board. And having more rooks on the board makes it slightly more dangerous for him. And somehow you have to get some sort of like fake counterplay somehow that doesn't really exist because you're worse, and you're probably losing, you know, but you got to make them work. This does make the technical task a little bit easier for white. And yeah, he advances his pawns, and now you finally get something going, but it's a little too late. And okay, white swooped in, and black resigned in this position. But I mean, okay, for not being a chess player for very long, for having, you know, just learned, and you put up such a big struggle against a grandmaster is a fantastic sign. So yeah, I hope you do continue to play, and hopefully we went over some of the Stonewall themes that can perhaps help you in your future games. You do want to get rid of your bad bishop, keep your good bishop, and when you have, you know, the worst pawn structure and you're facing a worse endgame, you do want to keep as many pieces on the board and avoiding trades. But thank you for sending in that fantastic submission. It was, you know, one of the better ones. I really enjoyed it. I liked seeing very few people actually send in their losses. I noticed several people, you know, everybody wants to see on the internet this great, fantastic game that I won. Oh, look at me, I crushed somebody 300 points higher rated. I'm the best. And I'm happy to show those too, because those often are a lot of fun. And but yeah, just thanks for sending in this game. If you like this video, hit like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week for some more strategy session.